Good evening, afternoon or morning. Movie Cat is at the microphone, and today I will tell you about an adventure tragicomedy. The 100-year-old man who climbed out the window and disappeared.
Maybe a drink first.
One cold day, Alan Carlson finds his best friend, a cat named Molotov, dead. The cat was torn by a fox, so the old man wrapped dynamite around the sausages, put a dynamite wick and blew up the fox. After this incident, Alan was placed into a nursing home. On his centennial day, Alan decides to leave the nursing home through the window. In the remaining days, he chooses not to wait for the death, but to enjoy some kind of adventures. Alan goes to the nearest bus station, where he buys a ticket to the first village he comes across. Meantime, a nervous young man enters the station. He has the habits of a neo-Nazi and a huge suitcase that does not fit into the bathroom with him. The Nazi yells at the old man not to let go of the suitcase until he returns. Alan, without letting go of the suitcase, leaves for his bus. Meanwhile, at the nursing home, the staff discover Alan's missing. On the road, Alan reminisces about his life journey. Everyone was yelling at me, from conductors to dictators. Alan's father was expelled from Sweden for promoting the use of condoms as a means of escaping hunger and poverty. Then he went to talk about this in revolutionary Russia, but the Bolsheviks quickly shot him there. Alan's mother received the things of her late husband, which included a Faberge egg, a Matryoshka doll and a camera. Since childhood, Alan really liked to blow up, and Matryoshka dolls served him very well in this matter. Alan's mother sold Faberge to the merchant Gustafsson for just a basket of groceries. She died 2 years later, and since then, young Alan began to live on his own. Alan, along with a suitcase, arrives at an abandoned station where a caretaker named Julius lives. Buses do not go from here. There is nowhere to rush, so it would be wonderful to eat, better yet, to drink. The neo-Nazi kidnaps a worker from a previous station to tell him where the old man went. As a result, the neo-Nazi finds an abandoned station and threatens Julius to kill if he does not return the suitcase. But Alan hits the bandit's head from behind. The neo-Nazi is locked in a freezer, and so that he does not scream or threaten, Julius turns on the cooling. Then they open the suitcase and see that it is full of money. Alan reminisces about his life again. After the death of his mother, he continued to blow up everything, and one day, for testing, he chose the same hill where the merchant Gustafsson passed, so his parts were scattered throughout the district. For this crime, Alan was sent to a psychiatric hospital, where he lived locked up for several years, until growing up. Once he was examined by a professor of racial biology, and after analyzing his appearance, the professor thought that there were blacks in his family. In addition, Alan's father was revolutionary, plus the guy himself has a penchant for violence. Therefore, the professor decided that Alan's genes should remain with him only, and performed an operation on Alan's inguinal zone. While the old man was remembering all this, the leader of a biker gang named Pike is trying to get through to one of his own, who was supposed to bring him a suitcase. In turn, the head of the mafia is waiting for this suitcase from Pike. The next morning, Julius discovers that yesterday he forgot to turn off the refrigerator, and the neo-Nazi froze to death. Alan recalls how he went to work at a bombshell factory where he met Esteban, who urged him to go to Spain to fight against the regime of Francisco Franco. Alan agreed, because in the war he could do his favorite hobby, to blow up. But when Alan and Esteban arrived in Spain, Esteban was immediately shot. Alan had a good time in Spain, blowing up bridges, but he soon got tired of this activity. He put a dynamite under his last bridge and went to the road to slow down a car that could drive him. Franco's motorcade stopped, and at that moment a bridge exploded behind Alan's back. General Franco thought that Alan had saved his life, so he threw a festive dinner in Alan's honor, and also gifted him a personal revolver. Julius and Alan decide to get rid of the frozen corpse, so they take it by rail to a warehouse where boxes of cargo for air travel are stored. Having opened the first box that came across, the old man pulled out a load from it and stuffed the corpse inside. Destination is Djibouti. Well, at least he will see the world, Alan says in the end. Upon reaching the city, Julius and Alan meet Benny, a lanky middle-aged man who works at a nearby store. Posing as hitchhikers, the old men get into Benny's car and continue the journey with him. Meanwhile, a police inspector gives an announcement about a missing centennial-old man on the radio, which is heard in his car by one of the bikers' gang members, named Burdock. He calls Pike and tells him about the old man and the suitcase. Pike sends Murdoch to find this old man and pick up the suitcase. In the United States, at the height of World War II, young Alan traded General Franco's revolver for permission to work in the United States and build skyscrapers there. His colleagues said that the government is now looking for people to participate in the Manhattan Project, the development of the most powerful bomb in the world. Alan's old love for explosions led him to volunteer for the army, and he began to work as an errand boy right at the nuclear test site. Alan was itching to watch the bomb tests, but chief physicist Robert Oppenheimer couldn't make a working prototype. The problem was to detonate the bomb. The two parts of the explosive inside must be combined moments before it hits the ground, and the scientists couldn't find a way to do this until Alan did not offer to solve the problem with his universal method, dynamite. It worked, and as a reward, Vice President Harry Truman himself came to dinner with him. Then Truman gifted Alan his lighter. Upon returning to Sweden, Alan was immediately invited to dinner with the Prime Minister. At home, they knew about Alan's success in the Manhattan Project, and therefore they invited him to the Atomic Energy Commission in the hope that he could share some secrets of the nuclear weapons developing, to which Alan willingly agreed. However, Alan, who was pretty drunk, was intercepted by the Soviet physicist Popov with the same goals. Together with him, they went for a walk around Stockholm at night to the embankment, where a Soviet submarine was already waiting for them. The old men tell their new friend Benny about the suitcase and promise to share the money. But first they need to rest somewhere and think about what to do next. Finding a small villa, they meet the owner, Gunilla, and ask her to give them shelter. In the garden, the men see an elephant that was stolen from the circus by Gunilla's ex-boyfriend, Ricky. According to Gunilla, this was the only good thing he did. A little later, Ricky himself arrives at the villa in a hope of restoring relations with Gunilla. She does not want to see him and drives him away. Frustrated, Ricky returns home and, sobbing, calls his brother to complain about the evil fate. Ricky's brother is Murdoch, biker gang member. From Ricky, he also learns that there, Gunilla had some 100-year-old ancient man. Biker Murdoch takes the address of his brother's ex-girlfriend and urgently goes there. On the submarine, Alan and Popov arrived in Moscow. Popov said that at first, KGB agents intercepted Einstein in Geneva to help develop a nuclear bomb, but he did not help them, as he turned out to be Herbert Einstein, Albert's mentally retarded twin brother. Alan told Stalin that he would share all the nuclear bomb secrets, but only after he get a drink. In 1 hour, evening turned into a mass booze in the Kremlin, in the midst of which Alan compared this evening with the gala dinner of Francisco Franco. Stalin and Franco were ideological enemies. Therefore, when Stalin heard the name of the Spaniard, he became furious, and upon learning that Alan had saved Franco's life, he immediately sent him to the Gulag. Alan did not like the Gulag for many reasons, but the main one was the lack of alcohol, and a year later he fled from there. Arriving at the villa, Murdoch threatens with a gun, demanding back his suitcase with the money. Enraged, Gunilla runs out with a shotgun. Frightened, Murdoch starts to run away, but slips and fires his pistol. The frightened elephant sits on Murdoch. Pike cannot get through to Murdoch, so there is nothing left but to go for the money in person. Julius puts the corpse of Murdoch in the trunk of his own car. Everyone is in a panic. Only Alan, keeping cool calmness, goes to the lake to swim. Paris, 1968. Alan is invited to a masquerade ball by the French foreign minister. There, Alan met an old acquaintance, Vladimir Karpov, who at one time worked under Stalin. Alan inadvertently unmasked Vladimir, who had been a Soviet spy here for a long time. The French branch of the CIA is interested in Alan's abilities. They suggested that Alan spy for the United States with the help of an old acquaintance, the physicist Popov. In Moscow, Alan found Popov and met his son Oleg, giving the boy a true man's lighter. Popov initially refused to help, fearing execution for stealing secret documents. Then Alan offered to give the CIA some unnecessary KGB documents, and in return received the same information from the CIA for the USSR. So Alan became a double agent. At the end of his career, Alan was given an electronic wristwatch with a built-in voice recorder for more discreet espionage. At the White House, Alan accidentally recorded President Reagan telling the gardener not to touch the wall and let it stand further. Having turned on this record in the Kremlin, Gorbachev thought that it was about the Berlin Wall, so he decides that Soviet Union should destroy it. A couple of years later, the Soviet Union collapsed and Alan retired. Popov's son, Oleg, still keeps in touch with Alan and uses the Truman's letter. Oleg is the director of a logistics company and calls Alan to congratulate him on his anniversary. And in response, the old man briefly talks about the escape from the nursing home, the suitcase and bikers. After the conversation, Alan and his new friends, as well as the elephant, leave the cottage right on the circus bus. Pike, meanwhile, is prowling the roads and suddenly spots Alan. Rushing in pursuit of them, Pike overtakes and blocks the road. An attempt to shoot the bus with a revolver fails and it crashes into the Pike's car at full speed. Benny tries to revive injured Pike. Frightened and angry, Gunilla makes a decision. When Pike comes to his senses, let him take his suitcase and leave. Then everything will be as it was before. However, the awakened Pike completely lost his memory and, at the same time, his interest in the suitcase too. Oleg calls Alan to find out where he wants to run away. Alan asks Pike the same and the first thing that comes to his mind is Bali, because this is exactly the place where Pike was supposed to send money to his boss. Pike, Benny, Gunilla, Julius, Alan and Elephant go to the island by Oleg's plane. Driving around Bali by car, Alan and Julius stumble upon the mafia boss, while the boss and his driver goes in the opposite lane and slowly looks at the old man. They are hit by a truck. Later, Alan and Julius are relaxing on the beach. Benny approaches them to ask for an advice, how to confess his feelings for Gunilla, and receives dubious parting words from Alan. Gunilla yells at the old man for this. After a few minutes, Alan begins to tell the story of his life to Julius, beginning with the words, "Everyone was yelling at me, from conductors to dictators." Thank you for your attention. Please be sure to subscribe if you are happy for the characters in this film, and most of all for the elephant.